What's going on, guys? Quinn69 here. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a guide on area damage. It's going to be a little bit long. We're going to go over 3 subjects. Basically the basics of area damage, how it works and everything. Then we'll go over the maths of area damage, how we can min-max it, and then we're going to go over the kind of applicable situations, as in how you can apply it to basically become OP, to become a god. So let's get started. Let's not mess around. So how does area damage work? Area damage has a flat 20% chance of activating each time a monster receives damage from you as a source. So every time you deal damage, you have a 20% chance of proccing area damage. If area damage activates, it will deal X amount of damage to all monsters within 10-yard radius of the monster who procced the area damage. And X is the amount of area damage you have. So if you have, whatever, 100% area damage in your character, you attack a guy with a spell, it procs area damage, then you're going to do 100% of that damage to everyone around the 10 yards of that monster that you procced it on. Sweet, makes sense? Simple as. Easy, boys, easy. Area damage procs off dots, it procs off all your spells, and it also procs off your pets as of 2.3. The damage radius goes off the target hit, not from the player doing the hitting. So if you're over here, if this is you, the monster's over here, okay, you cast a little spell, pew! You hit the monster, okay, it's going to proc the area damage in a 10-yard radius around the monster, not around you. Simple. It means, basically that just means ranged guys and melee guys. There's no disparity. You both have an equal chance of doing, similar sort of damage. Area damage does not proc from sweeping wind, thorns damage, or from legendary items. So what this means is, if you're running a build with sweeping wind, thorns damage, or if it's based around item damage, kind of like, to give an example, like the Chantodo's Wizard, okay, area damage is not going to be an attractive stat for you, as you're not going to benefit from area damage at all. Does that make sense? Area damage does not proc from itself, and it cannot trigger additional, basically what that means is, area damage can't continuously proc of itself. It can't, if there's like 100 monsters, it's not just going to bounce around and then just destroy the entire pack with some giant chain reaction. Area damage can only proc once off the source damage. Area damage never crits. Well, I put this one in here because some people get a little bit confused. Obviously, area damage does scale with crit, because if you crit for 1 billion, then area damage is going to proc off that 1 billion crit, and it's going to scale accordingly. But it's not going to come up as a crit number. Area damage is never going to come up as a yellow number. Just like it's not going to double dip in multipliers, so it's not going to double dip from Bane of the Trapped, but it is going to scale with Bane of the Trapped because it's scaling off the damage that you dealt in its final form after it's all been multiplied, if that makes sense. Area damage can be raised over 100% from gear and paragon points. You can get bigger AD values than your initial hit. So this just means, the majority of cases, area damage procs are actually going to be higher than the initial hit, especially if you're stacking it. Because you're going to be close to or over 100% area damage, and then also when you hit loads of enemies, it actually combines all the area damage numbers into one big juicy huge, like you'll see billions upon billions of damage written into this little tiny non-crit number, which is area damage. Targets do not check area damage on themselves, so basically what that means is area damage is completely useless in single target. Area damage cannot proc on the target that you hit. If you're hitting a group of 10 enemies, you're only going to get 9 area damage procs. You can just basically, you get the group of enemies, -1, and that's how you're going to get it. But that's the basic rules to area damage, guys. Now, we're going to get into the juicy math. We're now into the juicy part of the guide, the math portion. We're basically going to use the power of mathematics to show you guys why area damage is so good, and we can accurately calculate the amount of damage increase we're going to get from area damage, and prove that it's actually one of the best stats in the bloody game. So let's get started. This little formula right here, it might look a little bit intimidating. I'll go over it real quick and we'll show you guys how we're calculating the area damage. So all it is the amount of area damage you have in your character, multiplied by the number of enemies, X, -1, because you cannot proc area damage on, in a single target situation. So if you're fighting 10 enemies and, the source of the area damage proc then doesn't get hit by the area damage, so -1. It's 9 enemies multiplied by 0.2, the chance to proc area damage, and that's going to give you the damage increase. So your area damage multiplied by the number of enemies, -1 due to the fact that you can't proc it on the source of the area damage multiplied by 0.2. That's the chance to proc area damage, and that will give you the damage increase. So all I've done here is I've plugged the damage increase in, I've got some area damage values, and we can work out exactly how much damage increase we're going to get from area damage here. So as you can see here, I've just got 50% area damage in there, and we're fighting one enemy. So area damage doesn't proc single target, we're going to boost this up. So 50% area damage then converts into a 10% damage increase with 2 enemies. I'll just keep jacking this up, 3, 20%, 4, 30%. So you guys are seeing a trend right now. We're going up by 10% every time, and as we get to a critical point here, 6, we're now at 50% area damage to 50% damage increase. So what this means is, the second we get to 6 enemies, area damage equals to the damage increase. And then once we move beyond that, area damage actually becomes a greater value than what you actually get on the gear. So say this area damage, basically once you're fighting 6 enemies, area damage is equal to elemental damage, or equal to elite damage, or equal to Bane of the Trapped multiplier, whatever. Area damage is insane, providing you're fighting more than 6 targets. So you can see here on the graph, maybe you guys haven't quite got it yet, a little graph because some people are visual. So as you can see here, as you go up the number of enemies here, within a 10-yard radius, mind you, so they all have to be within a 10-yard radius, you increase the amount of damage you deal. So 20% area damage, once we get to 6 enemies, that's a 20% damage increase. 7 enemies, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. So at 11 enemies, we're getting twice as much value out of the stat on our gear. So you can then go ahead and put this value here and start plugging it in. So say we're then going to go put some area damage here. Say 20 on our shoulders, 20 on our gloves. Let's be realistic. We're probably not going to have it on our rings here. On our weapons, 24 each. We can then get to a value of up to 138% realistically on a monk, for example. And then say we're fighting a bunch of enemies and one target. I don't know how many you can hit. Well, I actually do. I'm going to show you guys in a bit. Say 15 enemies. So from 138% area damage, we're actually getting a total of a 386% damage increase, which is just insane. That's fighting 15 enemies. And you might be like, but can you really fight 15 enemies at a time? Let's move on to the third part of the guide, boys. How do we apply area damage, and how much is it worth? So since I've started talking, I keep going on about the 10-yard radius. So what we actually did here is we actually got a little circle. So sweeping wind is a 10-yard radius, and I just drew a circle on that, and we actually got the 10-yard radius box here. And then what you can do here, boys, is then put your character in a situation with a lot of density, aka a dream rift, and you get this little circle here, boys, and you can actually move it around and kind of see how many enemies you can put in this circle. And I don't know if you guys know how hitboxes work. We just got a little example here. Take this little example here. So basically what this means is, if we get this little circle here, you can see as long as our area damage box, this is our 10-yard box, just clips the hitbox of a monster, that is counting him in the, basically in the 10-yard explosion. So if you're going to put this circle right in a bunch of density, so say you're using a Juliana's monk, an exploding palm goes off, one area damage proc is going to hit, like in this little circle here, I actually sat down and I counted, that easily fits in 20 enemies. So, you know, you can imagine with our little guide before, like in a pretty good density rift, 20 enemies is going to be quite easy to maintain. It's like a Silver Spire zombie map sort of thing. And you know, you can see here 20 enemies, that's a 524% damage increase. But obviously you're going to have to average that out over the rift. So say you've got a pretty good rift the whole way, but then you're going to fight the Rift Guardian for, you know, say it's like 2 minutes of the rift. Depending on the rift clear speed and everything, the Rift Guardian might take up 10% of the rift. May or may not summon adds. You could probably drag this down, like on average, and a really, really good rift might be an average of 10 enemies. Okay, area damage is still double the value on a rift. This is being generous here. If you're averaging fighting 10 enemies at a time, that's 248% damage increase versus, say, elemental damage, which will just give you a 1-to-1. So we only have 138% area damage on our gear, but we're getting a total increase of 248% increased damage. So in conclusion, guys, as long as you're fighting either 6 enemies or more, area damage is equal to or greater than any of the other multipliers you can get on your gear. You know, 20% area damage converts into 20% damage increase at 6 enemies, and then beyond that, it just gets better and better and better. So obviously, the more enemies you fight, the more value area damage has on gear. And the only thing that limits area damage is literally the amount of monsters that you can fit into a 10-yard radius. So, you know, and you just gotta remember, guys, the way that the game is designed, you don't have to get the full monster inside this circle. You just have to clip the hitbox, and that counts as 10 enemies. So in this one circle here, you're easily getting 15, 20, 25 enemies in one little circle. So you know, in those absolute dream rift scenarios, area damage just becomes even more exaggerated and becomes more overpowered. But that's pretty much it, guys. If there's anything you didn't understand, go ahead and place some comments below, and I'll go ahead and try and answer that. And I'll also put some extra information, all the written stuff, in the guide below. But otherwise, guys, until next time, peace out, and have a good one, boys.